Hey friend, if you keep hitting speed walls with your hands that you can't break past and you feel like you just don't have any control over your sticks, especially as you're trying to play faster, then today's lesson is for you. Without implementing the big secret that I'm sharing with you today to more speed and control, you'll struggle to play smoothly and quickly around the kit so that you're nailing fast songs and fills and feeling free on the drums. I'll show you exactly how to increase your speed and control massively. And it all starts with this one little secret that we're breaking down today. You can do this. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome to The Non-Glamorous Drummer. I'm so glad you're hanging out today. I help self-taught beginner drummers know what to practice so that they can nail songs and ultimately become the drummer other people want to have in their band, the musician that other people want to jam with, which is the ultimate goal, I think, for most of us. And so if that's you, hey, you are in the right place. So, most likely, I'm making a generalization here based on myself and based on so many students I've worked with and so many hands that I've watched play over the years. The reason that your hands feel slow and sloppy and the reason why you're hitting speed walls constantly probably isn't due to a lack of strength. It's actually a grip and motion problem. And so there's some foreshadowing with where we're going with this secret today. And over, students come to me with some sort of hand speed fluidity frustration. And 99% of the time, it's fixable with just a tiny shift in their grip. Sometimes, we might move their thumb just a tiny bit, and that's a world of difference. We shift the fulcrum just a tiny bit on the finger, world of difference. And so sometimes there's one tiny little adjustment that you can make with your grip that just makes a world of difference in terms of control, speed, fluidity, smoothness, all the good things that we want. And so I want to plant that thought in your head before we get going. That's what I want you looking out for. As we're going through these steps today, I want you to be thinking, okay, what are some maybe tiny adjustments I can make that just might yield all the results, all the change that I need to finally break past that speed barrier. But first, I have a free gift for you I want you to check out in the description. If you're wanting faster, more fluid hands, odds are that's why you're here watching this lesson. I have a companion guide for you that I want to make sure you grab. This is my 3 daily pad exercises for fast, fluid hands. And so you can take what you're learning today in this lesson and actually use these pad exercises to continue practicing this stuff. And so this really is it's kind of like your take-home PDF to take to the practice room, download it, print it off. It gives you some very specific, actionable exercises that you can use to take action on what we're talking about in today's lesson. And these are the 3 exercises that have helped me the most and helped so many of my students with just being more fluid, quick, controlled, all the good things we want with our hands. So be sure to grab that. 3 daily pad exercises for fast, fluid hands. Free PDF guide, my gift to you in the description. Go grab that. Okay, so here's the secret. If I haven't foreshadowed at it enough so far, motion and control have to precede speed. If you want speed, you have to get the motion right. You have to pay attention to how the stick is moving, how it's moving within your hand, how it's moving, period. If you want speed, you have to get the motion right. But here's the catch. In order to get the motion right, you have to be gripping right. In other words, if speed is your main objective, you will fail. But if grip, then motion, then speed is your game plan, there's a recipe for success. And so that's the secret. It's all about order here. It's not to say I'm not saying there's something wrong with working on speed, but the speed will come naturally if you're making sure that you're gripping right so that then the sticks are moving right so that you have the control. Because if you're not gripping right, you're not going to have control. And if you don't have control, you might get speed, but it's going to be sloppy speed. We want smooth speed. We want to have control over our sticks no matter how loud or fast or whatever we're playing. The speed is no good without the control. I've had students who can sit here and go, and get through some gallopy singles, and it's like, okay, I can move fast, and it's obvious that, okay, their hands can move fast. Speed isn't the issue, but control and smoothness are. And that all starts with the grip. So there you have it. That's the big secret. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to go through some, really it's just 4 steps. 4 steps for making sure that you're doing this, making sure you're gripping well, that you're getting a smooth motion, and that you were then able to gain that control and speed. Now, the funny thing about this lesson is that I've taught this lesson 100 times. Like, this is something that I teach all the time to students, that I teach on YouTube all the time. But every time I teach it, there's always kind of a different insight here based on something I learned working with a student recently. And so there's a couple of new tidbits here and little details that I want you paying attention to, like the thumb thing that I mentioned, you know exactly where your fulcrum is. There's some little details here that I want to make sure you're picking up on. And so even if you feel like you've seen and heard this lesson before, if your hands are still not feeling great and you're not feeling completely smooth and controlled, then pay attention again, because this is always something we need to review. This is the fundamental stuff that I practice. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to work on my singles every time I practice and make sure they're smooth, fluid, controlled. You never get beyond this. This is something to always be working on. And so that's why I make so many lessons on this topic, because I want to help you make sure that you've got this down and that you're continuing to refine it as you grow over the years. So even if you're an advanced drummer, this is good stuff to be focusing in on. So what we want to do is adjust our fulcrum for a nice firm controlled grip, but also allow looseness and motion within the hand. That's kind of what it comes down to. And so the first thing we want to do is form a fulcrum between thumb and middle finger. Now, more detail on this is in a past lesson I'll link below, where we talk about the advantages of a middle finger fulcrum over an index finger fulcrum. You can do an index finger fulcrum, but it's harder to be open and relaxed with it. A lot of times, this is kind of the crazy thing, and go check out this lesson for all the detail on this. You can actually have more control because you can put more pressure on the stick, but still have more looseness when you're doing a middle finger fulcrum. We'll talk a little bit more about fulcrum placement here on the finger. But for now, just trust me on that. If you want to go check out that past video, please do. There we break down all the pros of doing a middle finger fulcrum over index. But for now, let's do this. Middle finger fulcrum. But here's the big thing, and I don't remember if we talked about this specifically in that lesson. If we did, we didn't really make a big deal out of it. But this is something that's really critical. And over and over again, I have students say, oh, wow, I just turned my thumb slightly and this feels so much better. So what I want you to make sure you're doing as you form this fulcrum, instead of having your thumb like pasted onto the stick, like you're doing a thumbprint on it like this, instead of that, what I want you to do is actually use the edge of your thumb. So not totally sideways thumb. We're not talking about this, but instead of this, we want it to be kind of an angle. I don't know if it's a 45-degree angle. I don't know if it's like a diagonal thumb placement, but instead of being totally on the side, instead of being totally square on, it's kind of that in between. So we're kind of using the side of the thumb. The reason why this is really important is because you can put a lot of pressure here on a fulcrum point with the side of your thumb and still be able to hinge the stick back and forth. If you put a lot of pressure on the stick with the pad of your thumb, you can't hinge it back and forth. It gets way too stiff because there's too much flesh making contact with the stick. But when you do the edge, it's a little bit less flesh, and it allows you to position the fulcrum further up. Because look at this. If we want to move the fulcrum up here, I'll explain more of why this is the case later. It makes a lot of sense to be even more on the edge of the thumb versus if we're down here, okay, we can be a little bit more pad. But if we try to stay pad of the thumb as we move up here, it doesn't work. And so if we want the flexibility of moving our fulcrum back and forth, which I'm going to explain why this is so important, you have to be willing to angle your thumb a little bit and use more the edge of your thumb. So I want that to be your biggest takeaway here from this step one. Form your fulcrum between thumb and middle finger. Use more the edge of your thumb than the pad. Step two, toss the stick back and forth in the air to test your grip. So literally it means, flick it up like that. So fingers are releasing a little bit to allow it to go up. Toss it back down. When it goes down, it's stopping because the butt end is hitting your palm right here at your wrist. We're not even hitting anything yet. We're just flicking it back and forth. You can even do a little bit of this just to make sure. We're testing the hinge point. We're just making sure that it's working. This is really important. Tweak your fulcrum, play around with it, play around with where the fulcrum is, the angle of your thumb, the amount of pressure, all these things until this is happening smoothly. Because if you can't do this, there's no motion, right? Motion is critical here. Fulcrum has to happen in order for the motion to happen. And if there's any issues going on at this stage, if there's something wrong here with this motion, if you can't do this smoothly up and down in a relaxed fashion, then you're going to run into trouble. And so spend as much time right here as you need to. So even though we're quickly moving through these steps, know that this is a critical one you want to spend a lot of time at. If there's issues right here, continue reviewing step one and figuring out where exactly do I need to place this fulcrum. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about fulcrum placement on the finger when we get into step four. Now, step three, practice playing softly but with big stick height. So now we're wanting to apply this motion to actually hitting a surface. So if you've got a practice pad, this is an Aquarian Super Pad. It's got a little bit of, a fair amount of bounciness. It's not as bouncy as an Evans Real Feel. I think the Aquarian Super Pad is the most realistic feeling like rubbery practice pad. This is an unofficial endorsement, but if you want to grab one, they're not cheap. They're like 50 or 60 bucks, but you can buy different sizes and you can actually put them onto a drum. I don't think they work great on toms because they don't feel like toms, but they give a realistic amount of rebound for a fairly tightly tuned snare, but they're not too springy and they feel great. They don't hurt your hand. It's not like hitting a tabletop like with an Evans Real Feel. So my unofficial endorsement for the Aquarian Super Pad. But whatever practice pad you have, doesn't matter. I'm just letting you know what mine is because that's something people ask all the time. Practice gently tossing the stick down. And when I say toss, it's not throw it down. We're not trying to do that. And it's not just a drop. It's kind of just a little push. We're just giving a little push down. That way it bounces right back up. But we're also doing a little bit of lift because remember, we've been practicing this right here, this up and down motion. We want to make sure we can airplay this motion without hitting a pad. And so we're just applying this to the practice pad. Now we just have the help of the rebound. So there's a big question that I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but a student asked me this recently, and I thought it was a really great question. He asked me, can I get speed without the strength? So can I get to where I'm able to play really fast before I've actually built the strength that I think I need in order to play fast? And it's such an interesting question because my initial thought was, well, no, you got to build the strength if you're going to play fast. But as I thought about it, I thought, well, you can play pretty fast without a lot of strength if you have established this fulcrum that we're talking about, this motion that we're talking about, because laws of physics, what if we gradually decrease our stick height? It's kind of like if we just go like this and we just let the stick free bounce and then we press it down, it's going to bounce faster. In a way, that is speed with zero effort. Or we can just practice doing singles, and as we decrease the stick height, it's pretty easy to go faster. Just a little bit of wrist work, but not really any strength involved because we're going quieter. And so you can kind of cheat at this point and work toward quickly achieving that speed simply by playing softer and having less of a stick height. It's just like if you're bouncing a basketball, and if you're dribbling really high, you can only dribble so fast. It takes a ton of force to throw the basketball down to spring up really quick if you're dribbling at head height. But as you get lower, chest, waist, knee height, well, then suddenly you can dribble it really fast. Laws of physics, same with the sticks, where as you decrease your stick height, you can go faster without exerting more effort. You're just closing down that motion, and therefore you get a quicker speed. Now, as your strength naturally builds over time, even if you're not really working at it, then you'll eventually be able to achieve the speed and the volume. And really the big point I want to make today is that you can't ultimately get that loud, fast playing without the motion coming first. So yes, you can work on strength and you can say, all right, I'm going to work on, and work on the wrist strength, and you're throwing towels over the drum, and so you're hammering into towels trying to build wrist strength. Okay, you can do that, but if you haven't first established the smooth motion, then you don't have a foundation to which to apply that strength. And so sometimes it's better just to allow the strength to come naturally. Yes, you can do workouts. Yes, you can, just by playing the drums, you're building strength. By hitting toms, you're building strength. By playing, hitting crash cymbals, moving around the kit, all these things are naturally building strength. And so that's why I say most of the time you don't need to prioritize the strength building. It's more about the grip and the motion first, and gradually the ability to play loudly and quickly will come. You'll get to where you can play quickly down here just by decreasing stick height, and then as that strength naturally comes. And so that can be your course of action in your practicing. Once you've got the motion, once you've got the grip feeling good, and you say, all right, I can get my eighth notes going at about 110, 120, whatever this tempo is. This is feeling great, and I can do this all day. Fantastic. Now, each day, or maybe each week, you can go slowly with this, gradually increase your stick height so that you're gradually increasing your volume, so that each day, each week, you're getting a little bit more of a workout. So instead of going a full-on workout mode, you're just using the grip, motion, and relaxed smoothness that you've created here to gradually build your speed. And then maybe a few days later, you're doing this. All the while, you're checking up, you're making sure things are smooth here. And eventually, you're at a full 90-degree range of motion, full 12 o'clock stick height. And you're practicing doing this for a minute, 2, 3 minutes, 5 minutes without stopping. And at that point, you have the grip, you have the motion, you've got the speed, and now you're building the strength. It becomes all 4 of those things in one package, which is awesome. But know that it needs to be that order. It has to be that order of grip, motion, speed, strength. And I know the speed and the strength kind of get intertwined sometimes, but I think this is a really good approach for doing this. Now, step 4, because what I just showed you, you might run into trouble with without also doing what we're going to talk about here in step 4. So one last thing, adjust your fulcrum point, so where your fulcrum is on your middle finger, and the amount of pressure on it as you change dynamics. So when we're going real soft right here, I can have my fulcrum out here. Remember, we're kind of using the edge-ish of the thumb. We might be halfway out middle finger. Just very relaxed. The stick is moving within the hand, which is critical. We're always having the stick moving within the hand. But as we get louder, if I don't change anything, that might happen. It might slide out, or that might happen. And so if you've been there, if that's what's going on, here's what you got to do. As you get louder or as you get faster, you have to slide your fulcrum further down the finger, closer to your palm. This is something that we specifically did a lesson about a while back. I'll also link it in the description. Something that I've loosely referred to as the fast grip. If you're wanting to play loud and fast, you have to move your fulcrum here. That way you're able to be more firm. And what's cool is you can put more pressure on the fulcrum this way without pain. It doesn't take a lot of exertion from your thumb and from your hand to put more pressure when the stick is way up here versus down here. And you can have a good bit of pressure here and still be able to do this. So as you're trying to play louder and faster, you just have to move your fulcrum up to here, very much the edge of the thumb. Other fingers are gently curving around. We're still having some motion within the hand, always, but it becomes very wrist-driven. And so that way you can do this all day and the stick is not slipping and sliding because you're able to put more pressure right here. And so louder and faster equals more pressure, softer and slower equals less pressure. Remember, if we're playing very soft, when we're going very soft, the stick's not even moving much within our hand. So it doesn't even matter so much where the fulcrum is because it's kind of just the wrist playing. But as we get louder, okay, if we're still going slow as we get louder, we can have our fulcrum way out here, super relaxed, and it works. But as we get faster, we're going to lose control if we don't move it up. And so that's a critical adjustment to always be thinking about if you want to be able to maintain control as you get faster. And a lot of times that's the issue, where as you get faster, you start to lose control. And that's a big reason why. And so really the name of the game here is always be evaluating your grip and asking yourself, is there something I need to change with my grip? Is there a tweak I need to make because of X issue going on? So if you're having a hard time reaching a speed point, you're having a hard time feeling controlled, things aren't smooth, these are symptoms of a core problem that's probably going on with the grip and therefore with the motion. And so know that order: grip, motion, speed, and then strength. And so if there's any issues further up the line, always go a step back and ask yourself, okay, what might be the root cause of what's going on here? And when you take that approach, that means you're able to self-assess. That means you're able to self-analyze. That is huge, especially if you are a self-taught beginner drummer, which I know so many of you are. That means you are able to sit there and evaluate and say, all right, I need to move my thumb a little bit. I need to make this adjustment. And then suddenly you see a world of difference without even going to an in-person drum lesson. You can do that. It takes a little bit of work. Film yourself, make slow motion video of your hands, do what you got to do. But it's going to help you a bunch. So here are the 2 biggest wins that you'll accomplish by practicing this. I always want you thinking forward a little bit, having kind of a long-term mindset, thinking, okay, here's what my playing will look like 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the road if I work at this, if I make this a priority in my practicing. Well, not only will your hands be smooth and quick, they'll also be steady and consistent. That's kind of an indirect result of all this, which is the key for sounding professional on the drums, because smooth time and dynamics equals great feel. Does that make sense? So we're not just trying to get speed here. Remember, we're also getting control. You have to have the control, to have the speed. And when you have control, that means that naturally your playing is smoother and more in time. I'm not having to sit here and think, are these quarter notes or eighth notes or whatever we call them based on our tempo, I don't have to think, are these smooth, are they in time? They just are, because it's just a repetitive motion. The motion dictates the time and it's naturally smooth. That means that my groove is naturally going to lock in with a metronome better. Also, it's going to stay a steady dynamic. It's not going to be haphazard. And, you know, if we were doing terrible caveman grip, who knows what the dynamics would be? The volumes would be all over the place. But instead, we can be super steady and consistent. And so those things equal great feel. So forget the whole speed thing. You're going to have better feel now. You're going to have better time and dynamics, which makes you a more professional sounding drummer. And that's a key skill when it comes to recording. We could go deep into that in another lesson, and I'm pretty sure we have. You can definitely do some digging on the channel and find that. But hey, here's the other big reason, other big win you'll accomplish by practicing this. You'll be able to much more easily tackle a fast song or a big fill around the kit, which is an awesome feeling. Let's be honest, that's the big direct thing that we're wanting. And when you have the quicker hands, you're able to just play what you want to play and not have to think about it and not worry about train wrecks and fills being out of time, because hey, fills become naturally in time when you get these motions down. When your hands are smooth and motion is happening the way it's supposed to, you don't have to think so much about time and the dynamics become steady. So know that this is what's going to happen when you practice this. So one thing I want you to do before you go, and I kind of already hinted at this, but let me just be super direct with you. Do some self-analysis with your hands. Shoot some up-close video with your smartphone. Slow motion is ideal while you play some slow singles. That way you can really see what you're doing and do some self-evaluation. And remember, be thinking, what's one little thing that I can fix, tweak, or adjust from today's lesson? Where is my thumb angled? Where is my fulcrum on my middle finger? Where on the stick am I gripping? If you want a nice, loose, relaxed grip, try the American flag on a Vic First stick. So you've got this much extra stick. If you're playing louder, you can slide down here, but if you want a lighter, more soft, flowing kind of feel, grip further up. And so be thinking about these things. What are some slight adjustments I can make? Moving the thumb, sliding fulcrum up or down finger, changing where on the stick you grip, or changing the amount of pressure that you're putting on the stick. Think about all those variables and pay attention to those as you're practicing and as you're self-analyzing and watching your video. Do that, and I promise you're going to grow a whole bunch. All right, thanks so much for watching today. Be sure to go grab that e-guide if you want fast, fluid hands. Grab my free gift to you, the PDF, 3 daily pad exercises for fast, fluid hands. You'll have a lot of fun with that, and it'll help you out a bunch. As always, stay non-glamorous. Know that you can do this. I'll see you on the next lesson.